Well, hello, everyone. Thanks for being here today. My name is Matt Upton. I'm the Assistant Dean for Career and Student Services. We may just give it another minute or so just to see if anybody else logs on, but then we'll get going here. Thanks, Mitch, for turning on your camera there for us. We'll get started here in just a sec. Well, we're going to go ahead and get started here. I want to respect everybody's time. Again, thanks for joining us today. Now, we're also recording this for anyone who wants to watch it in the future. So if you know of anyone who wants to get this information but wasn't able to join us today, we'll be able to provide that to them if they would like. My name is Matt Upton. I'm the Assistant Dean for Career and Student Services here at the Bush School at Texas A&M University. We are now a program that has both undergraduate, master's, and PhD, or all three of those degree programs. But today we're going to focus specifically on our graduate programs in public and international affairs. So if you have any questions at any time, feel free to populate those in the chat. Ashley Treadway is our Assistant Director for Admissions, and she's going to be watching that, and I'll be watching it as well. She'll catch at me if I, for some reason, overlook something. And then we also have Ashley Winterroad, who is on our staff here as Assistant Director for Career Programming, and she is here in case you have any questions that she needs to answer. She's also learning. She joined us just a little over a month and a half ago. So she's joining so that she can continue to be able to do these kinds of workshops for us. I already shared who I am, so let's just talk about career development. Obviously, most people go to graduate school not just for the fun of going to graduate school, right? Most people go to graduate school because they're trying to enhance their professional opportunities beyond their undergraduate degree. We have a number of opportunities for you here, and so we'll walk you through the process of not only getting a job or an internship, but also just thinking about how you go about developing yourself professionally as you enter into graduate school. So we'll talk a little bit about career paths available in public and international affairs, talk about how to get the most out of the resources at whichever school you go to. We work really closely with other graduate programs in public and international affairs across the country. We share a lot of resources, best practices, and those types of things. We'll talk to you a little bit about internships and employment, professionalism, the marketable skills that you'll walk away with, and then the importance of networking as you think about your time in graduate school and beyond. So a lot of people ask initially, okay, if I get a graduate degree in public or international affairs, what type of job? When you say public service jobs, what does that mean? And I'll tell you that for the most part, we're talking about public sector jobs, but we realize that jobs are available in both the private sector and in the public sector that have similar knowledge, skill, and ability requirements. And so when you think about a graduate program in public administration or international affairs, or just more generically in public service, here are some examples of some types of career paths that you could take. You could become an analyst, a budget analyst, program analyst, intelligence analyst. Now we've got people who do auditing, internal auditing, and work in that capacity, both at the university level, in local government, in state, and in federal government. You could be a coordinator. You may come to us with an undergraduate degree in communications or emergency management or public health or political science, and you take the skills that you've developed there, or maybe in other internship opportunities or student organization opportunities, and you apply those to be a coordinator of communications or homeland security or some of the other options here. You could serve as a consultant. There are obviously consulting firms out there that do a lot of work in the private sector and do consulting for other private sector companies. But many of those private sector consulting firms also have a public sector division. And so if you look at places like Deloitte or Accenture, they have a federal government consulting business, or Maximus is a consulting firm that does a lot of work at the state and local level. So there are opportunities like that. You could work in a development capacity, developing policy and protocols, whether that's in a legislative situation or again in an agency situation at the federal, state, or local level. You could work as an investigator. We've got former students who work I've got one former student who's coming in for an alumni panel this weekend, and she is working for the Counterterrorism and Intelligence Division here in the state of Texas, at the Texas Department of Public Safety. We've got others who work in U.S. Immigrations and Customs, and they're working in the capacity of investigating situations there. We've got people that are working in federal law enforcement, state and local law enforcement as well. You can find yourself being the manager of a legislative office or a project or program at universities or in nonprofit organizations. And then obviously you can take the skills that you develop in a graduate program in public and international affairs and become a researcher in a variety of policy fields. That just gives you a sampling of the opportunities that are available. Now, I always remind prospective students, if you look at the federal government or you look at state government and sometimes even local government in major metropolitan areas, they literally hire almost every career field, people from every career field you can imagine. They even hire lawyers and doctors and accountants and all of those types of things. So the degree that you're going to get here is not going to set you up necessarily to be a CPA within federal government or state and local government, but it is going to give you the knowledge, skills, and abilities to enter into those career fields. So where are some of the places that our graduates go to work? And again, this is just a quick sampling here. But if you look across our sectors, and we'll talk a little bit more specifically about employment statistics here in just a second, where our students specifically go. We've got former students working in nonprofit organizations, international non-governmental organizations, some of those very well-known, like the United Nations and the World Bank, and others that are not as well-known, that are very specific to a region or a country or a part of the world. The US federal government is obviously someone who hires a number of our students. We have a very large group of former students who make their way to the nation's capital when they graduate from here and spend a number of years there. Some of them stay there indefinitely, and others spend a few years there and then decide to move back to maybe a home state or back to Texas and begin working in a different capacity. I will also say that COVID really helped the federal government become more flexible in their work. I sent out a job opportunity to our students this week that was a writer and editor job for the US Department of Defense, but it's a completely remote job, so you can live anywhere. I've got another former student who's working for the US State Department. She started working for them during the pandemic in North Carolina, where she's from. And although her office is based out of DC, she still lives and works in North Carolina and makes an occasional trip to Washington, DC. So definitely changed landscape in where you're working when you work for the public sector. Here's some of the employers. You'll see some that are pretty familiar, larger names: American Cancer Society, Habitat for Humanity, USAID, a number of different intelligence agencies, different US departments: Defense, State, Homeland Security, Commerce, Energy, the Texas legislature. We've also got some who are working in other state legislatures, obviously not as many as we have working for the Texas state legislature. City of Houston. We've also got people working in the New York governor's office, the state of Maryland. We've had former students who work in cities in Kansas and in Washington state. So just a wide variety of places you can go. Booz Allen Hamilton, a pretty big government contractor, to give you an example. Ernst & Young, we should update that now. I think they officially just go by EY now. And Accenture, just again, to give you a quick sampling of where our students are going to work when they finish their degrees. So we encourage you, when you're in graduate school, make sure that you utilize the school resources. Here at the Bush School, we have some that I'll talk to you about here in just a second, but I know we've had a couple of people who've added a little bit late. So just a reminder that if you have a question, feel free to pop it in the chat box and we'll get to it as soon as we can as we go throughout our workshop here. But right now, we want to talk to you just about some of the school resources that we offer here. And as I mentioned earlier, a number of graduate programs in public and international affairs are going to offer similar type resources. So when you look at the specific programs that you're applying to, I encourage you, take a look at what resources they offer. Do they offer a leadership development program? If they do, what does that look like? Here at the Bush School, we have our public service leadership program where we spend some time doing some self-assessment, or allowing you rather to do some self-assessment. Things like Myers-Briggs type indicator, Strengths Finder, some things that you may be familiar with and maybe have done. We would encourage you to do those again as you start graduate school. Develop an individual leadership plan, and then engage in the process of developing yourself as a leader. And we're looking at ways to continue to enhance that as we go throughout our time here. That's also really important when you get into your second year of graduate school, specifically at the Bush School, where we are working with you as you work alongside your classmates in your capstone projects in place of a master's thesis, where you're working for a real world client, working to solve a problem for them or give them recommendations on some major issues that they're working through. So you really do serve as a consultant, a team of consultants working for that client. We also have a writing program. We have 2 staff members who oversee a writing program here. They are not editors. They're not going to edit your papers for you, but they are going to provide instruction to you on how to make sure that you're writing effectively. How do you write things like a policy brief? How do you write a brief memo? How do you follow the process of what we call bluff, putting the bottom line up front? Those are the types of things that our writing staff members are going to work with you on. And they'll also meet with you individually, but they'll also come into classrooms and offer workshops that you can attend. Here at the Bush School, as in many other universities, we have a number of research institutes, like the Scowcroft Institute for International Affairs, the Mosbacher Institute for Trade and Development, the Institute for Science, Technology, and Public Policy. We have some research centers, the Center for Nonprofits and Philanthropy and the All Britain Grand Strategy Center for Grand Strategy, I should say. And then also we have a program called the Women, Peace and Security Program and in our International Affairs program. We bring in a number of speakers and conferences. This year's a pretty special year for us because it's our 25th anniversary. So we've had a number of different speakers. We've had a series called The 41 I Knew, where we brought in a number of people who were on President Bush's staff. And those are the types of speakers that come here pretty regularly. And I expect that that will continue in the future, even beyond our 25th anniversary. We have some conferences that our institutes and centers put on in our departments, our academic departments put on, that students are able to participate in. Plenty of opportunities to network with faculty, staff, students, and former students. We bring in alumni any chance we can to share their career path, to share information about the employer that they're working for. There are international travel opportunities. You'll see in that picture, these 3 pictures here on this slide are actual graduates of the Bush School. The young woman in the bottom left-hand corner is a Foreign Service officer right now at the State Department. You can see from the picture in the sand that those students were in the Middle East. I don't remember specifically where that trip was, but it's fun to see some former student faces in those pictures. And then up at the top, you'll see one of our former students, the young man, working with one of the language tutors as he was preparing to take his language exam. He was specifically working on Korean. And so there are other opportunities as well for you to travel with the academic departments, and we're seeing that come back post-COVID. So should be some opportunities for that. Language resources. If you're applying for the International Affairs program, you are going to have to pass an oral language exam. And so we encourage you to take advantage of those resources. You could do a summer language immersion where you go to a country, you work on the language, typically one you've already worked on before and know some about, and then you come back and take an oral language exam. We also have tutoring and oral language training, and that's what's in that represented in that upper right-hand corner, the picture there. And then we have a number of student resources, or student activities as well. We have an internal graduate student government association, public service organization, Alexander Hamilton Society, European Union, European Horizons organization. So a number of different opportunities, plus Texas A&M University has over 1,000 student organizations. I believe that's the correct number now that you can be involved in, or you can just get involved in the community. in the cities, in nonprofit organizations, and faith-based organizations. So plenty of opportunities for you to engage here in College Station or at the Bush School. So many of you are probably wondering, okay, this sounds great, but what if I don't know how to really conduct a job search? Well, that's where our staff comes into play. So we have 3 staff members who work in career services. I say that there's really 2 and maybe a third of an individual. I'm that 1/3 because I started here in career services 19 years ago, and I still love to provide career advising, but I have some other responsibilities. So our 2 primary staff members are Ashley Winterroad, who is on the call with us today or on the webinar today. She's our Assistant Director for Career Programming. So she offers a number of career workshops throughout the year. We start off our first year with a requirement that students attend 4 to 5 required career workshops and submit deliverables for that, resume review, LinkedIn profile based on some guidelines we provide, sample interviews, sample networking, and ways to really enhance your ability to be effective in that. And if you do that, then you can qualify for this supplemental funding for any unpaid internships or language immersions. You have to complete the workshops, and that information is provided to you in advance of you coming into the school. So you'll know what those dates are and what that looks like. In addition to those group workshops, we also are happy to meet with you individually, and you can meet with any of the 3 of us. Each one of us brings a different perspective. We're largely going to share the same information. Some of us, because I've been here longer, I can put you in touch with some people that were here a little bit further back in the history of the school. Mike's been here. Michael Cochran is our Assistant Director for Employer Relations. So in addition to what Ashley does with career workshops, Michael also brings in employers and manages that process. He also manages a career management system where we post jobs and internships that you can access as a student. Mike's been here for about 10 years, and so he knows a number of former students. And so plenty of opportunities for us to help you connect with those people, but also provide individual career advising. And that can include reviewing written application materials like resumes and cover letters. We have some career interest groups that we manage with the students, taking the lead on that. We've already talked a little bit about networking events and connecting students with alumni. And then we're here to help you in both your internship search during your first year and in your job search in your second year. We are also here after you graduate. So we offer career advising, career services to our former students for their lifetime. So you are always welcome to come back. We have a number of former students. I think I mentioned at the very beginning, you will have a former student who might end up going to Washington, D.C. for a few years, and then they decide, hey, it's time to move back home. And so they might reach out to us and say, hey, we're moving back to Texas. I need to do a job search. Who are the people that I can connect with? And we'll begin to help make those connections or review application materials or any of those types of things. So some good opportunity to help students there. If you don't know where we are, I obviously don't know where all of you are located, but if you don't know where we are really in a great, very centralized location in Texas. So you're pretty close to 3 to 4 major metropolitan areas. You can see us, the star there in the middle. And then if you look to the north, you'll see Dallas is about 3 hours away. If you look to the southeast, you'll see Houston, and that's about an hour, depending on where you're going to Houston, an hour and 15 to an hour and 30 minutes away. Austin is to the southwest, and that's about an hour and 15 minutes to an hour and a half away. And then San Antonio is another 30 to 45 minutes from there, again, depending on where you're going in the greater San Antonio area. So plenty of opportunities for you to go to those places and make networking contacts as well. So we want to give you some information on just our outcomes of our graduate students. I know I showed you some of the places that our former students go to work, but now I'll give you some percentages just so you have an idea of what this looks like. We collect employment statistics for 6 months post-graduation. That's pretty standard across all graduate programs in public and international affairs. So if you look at other schools, most of them are probably going to report out at 6 months. Some of them may report out at graduation, at 3 months, at 9 months, and at a year, but I'm pretty sure that almost all of us report at least at 6 months post-graduation. So we are still collecting data from the class of 2022. Also keep in mind that 2020 and 2021 were COVID years. So a little bit different, but I can still give you some information. You can see we typically have a response rate of 90% response rate or not. So we're not talking about a small portion of our graduates who are sharing information with us, and then we're posting that as though it represents everyone. This is pretty representative across the board. Our alumni employment rates within 6 months of graduation range from that 81% to like 96% over the last 5 years or so. 81%, you might think, oh, that has to be a COVID year. Actually, it's not. We actually, for our international affairs graduates, we do not report you as employed until you're employed in the career field that you're interested in. Meaning, if you have a conditional offer in the intelligence community, we're not going to report you as employed until we know you're on the job. We do that because we want to make sure that it's representative. You might have to do something that fills the gap between graduation in May and when your clearance comes through, anywhere from 6 months to 18 months later. So I tell you that just to know that we try to be as transparent about this as possible. But we'll have our class of 2022 numbers up in January, February, about the time of our application interview conference weekends. But you can see in public administration, historically, our top 3 groups are usually state and local government, nonprofit organizations, and federal government. Now, with federal government, one thing you need to know is that you need to combine that federal number and that government contractor number. Because although our graduates are working for a government contractor, they're doing that work for the federal government typically. Sometimes state and local, but most of the time, 95% or more of the time, that's a federal government contractor. So you also have to know that in 2021, the government wasn't hiring as much, and so we had more students who went to work in the private sector. And so you see that. Continuing education, a small portion of our students go on to either get a PhD or may decide at the end of this to go to law school. I would encourage you, if you're thinking about law school after a graduate degree in public administration, call me, let's talk. I'll save you some money probably and encourage you to pick one or the other. It's not absolutely necessary to have both a public administration or international affairs degree and a law degree. We want you to make the best decision for you though. So happy to have that discussion with you. And then you'll see in international affairs, no surprise, our state and local numbers are a little bit lower and our federal numbers are much higher. So historically, in international affairs, we're looking at 45% and above, because again, we're combining that federal and that government contractor number. 45% and above are typically going to work in the federal government space. So a lot of our graduates from international affairs end up moving to Washington, D.C., or at least working, now that many of the federal agencies are doing remote work, at least working for a U.S. federal agency. And then you can see, if you look at 2020 numbers for public administration in blue and international affairs, you still see those federal numbers a lot higher for international affairs and pretty evenly distributed across the different sectors in public administration. 2020 is a little bit of an anomaly. So if you look on our website under the prospective student tab, there is more employment statistic information there with greater detail. And it also gives you a 5-year snapshot. So it shows you the class of 2021 plus 4 more years before that. So you can see really outside of the pandemic, and it gives you probably a little cleaner picture of what employment statistics look like. So we've talked a little bit about this. Our students go through our process of finding an internship. Internships are required between your first and second year, unless you have 3 or more years of related professional experience. If you're in the international affairs program and you have that related experience, but you haven't passed your language exam, you're going to be strongly encouraged to complete a language immersion. If you are concerned about passing your language exam in that international affairs program, you are going to be strongly encouraged to take the option of doing a language immersion, because again, you have to pass that language exam in order to graduate. You could have a 4.0 in 48 hours of graduate studies at the Bush School and not pass that language exam, and you will not get your diploma until you've passed it. So we want you to make sure that you take care of that. You can see summer of 2019. We show 2019 because, again, that was post or pre-pandemic, so it's a little cleaner picture of what we are starting to see come back up. You had students who interned or studied language in 21 different countries. Some of the ones that they went to are listed here: Europe, East Asia, Central and South America, the Middle East, the UK, France, some of those places. Where are people going? Public administration, you can see in state and local. Bryan, Texas, which is the sister city to College Station. So if you've looked and only seen us as College Station, Bryan, College Station is they're twin cities. Dallas, Fort Worth, Houston, McAllen. Outside of the state of Texas, we've got former students who've gone to Pennsylvania to work in Philadelphia, Florida, California, and Tennessee. Work for the state of Washington, and then also other A&M system agencies. So Texas A&M University, the Texas A&M University system, in addition to universities, also has state agencies like the Texas A&M Transportation Institute, does a lot of transportation policy and admin work. Texas A&M Forest Service does a lot of environmental work, Forest Service, Texas Engineering Extension Service, a lot of emergency management, urban search and rescue type work. So still related to what our graduates are looking for. Nonprofit organizations, you can see here, Boys and Girls Club, Food Bank, Dallas Holocaust Museum, Houston Holocaust Museum, Make-A-Wish Foundation, YMCA, Middle Tennessee. Federal agency, a number of different federal agencies, the intelligence community, a number of different places that they've gone: congressional offices, U.S. Department of Commerce, Treasury, Government Accountability Office, and then some international organizations like the Atlantic Council, Center for Strategic International Studies, or Organization of American States. International affairs, same kind of thing, a little bit different. You'll see even at the state level, we've got some international affairs students working at the state level, because states, especially major metropolitan states like, or large states like Texas and California, and other places where human trafficking is an issue, they're starting to address those types of things. And you can see some of the same places down there. And then language immersions in a number of different languages, but top ones in Arabic, Spanish, Mandarin, Russian, German, and French. So second year capstone project, not necessarily career, right? But the reason we pointed out here is because you're working for a real world client. And so you're working for some of those same agencies or organizations in the public sector that you may want to work for in the future. And so we point this out so that you're aware of what things look like. Even with that capstone project, you're working with a team of classmates. So this is a picture of a group of our students who worked together on a capstone a few years ago. And you're working to address an issue for an organization. And here are some of the places that our students have done capstones for. And some of these are repeat people, right? So Congressional Research Service is pretty standard. Government Accountability Office, USAID, see those coming in and out quite a bit. Texas Department of Public Safety, the Texas Legislature. Every legislative session in Texas, that's every other year. So this spring, we will have a group of students, a group of 6 students, I believe, who are headed over to Austin for the spring semester. They'll do classes in the evenings and on weekends, and they'll work for a state legislator during the work week, and that's part of their capstone project. So we do that during the capstone years, during the legislative years. And so that's a great opportunity for our students to get their foot in the door. And many of those students will end up either staying in Austin and continuing to work for that legislator, or finding a contact within a state agency, or maybe even going back to a district office or a regional office for the legislature that they worked for. You can see some other local government entities, nonprofit organizations, and then even some private sector organizations that our students have done capstones for in the past. So if you're not from Texas A&M University, if you didn't do your undergraduate here at A&M, or if you don't have a family member who's an Aggie, you may have heard a little bit about this thing called the Aggie Network, but you may not really know much about it. We love to encourage students, no matter where you're coming from, to take advantage of the Aggie Network. I always try to describe networking in this way. As a student who comes to the Bush School from another university, you've really got 3 separate networks that you can work with. You can work with your undergraduate network, and we encourage you strongly to do that. Find individuals through LinkedIn who are working in the places that you want to look at and you want to work for. And then look at the Aggie Network. The Aggie Network is big. It's got over 500,000 living former students who are a part of the Association of Former Students. Many of them stay in touch or keep their information updated on LinkedIn. And then we're really fortunate here that we have just over 2,500 Bush School graduates from our public administration and international affairs graduate programs. And I would say 75% or more of them stay in touch with us. They receive regular communication from us. They're almost always happy to help. If they aren't, they're happy to try to find someone else who can help. So when you meet with me or with Ashley or with Michael in career services, we're going to talk to you about what it is you want to do. And then we're going to identify former students that we can put you in touch with. I can tell you a lot about the career fields that our students go into, much like I've done today. But our former students can tell you, what are they really looking for in that organization? What's it really like? Are there classes at the Bush School that they took that they really recommend? Are there classes that they wish they'd taken at the Bush School that they didn't take advantage of? And they look back now in hindsight and go, I should have done that. So they really want to be involved in what you do and want to help you as you go throughout this process. So there's that as well. And then the Aggie Network is huge. If you haven't been to College Station or you haven't been to Aggie Land before, you've got a lot of people who are really excited about helping you and they want you to be successful. Our graduates of the Bush School do that. And our graduates of Texas A&M University want you to be successful and help in that way. Okay, so we're really at the end of information here. So if you have a question, feel free to throw it in the chat. I am happy to answer those questions. If it's something really specific to you, I'll kind of stick around till the end. But if you have any follow-up questions, obviously you can research us online at our website, bush.tamu.edu, or the main Texas A&M University website, www.tamu.edu. Graduate degree admissions is Catherine Meyer, our Director of Recruiting and Admissions, or Ashley Treadway. The best way to contact them is Bush School Admissions at tamu.edu, or that number 979-862-3476. I feel like I just did an infomercial as I threw out that number there. Call 979-862-3476. And I at least made Mitch smile, so that makes me happy today. But the best way to contact them is using that Bush School admissions email, because both of them monitor that and a graduate assistant monitors that. So you have a better shot of contacting them. Right, for example, right now, Catherine is on the road recruiting, and so she's not in the office. So if you just send it to Catherine, it may take a little bit longer, but if you send it here to this Bush School admissions at tamu.edu, you can get a response a little bit faster. And then finally, if you have specific questions that maybe didn't get answered today, or you go have a conversation with a parent or a loved one or a friend, and they say, well, what about this? Can you do this with a degree from the Bush School? And I didn't answer that question today, feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to answer any questions you have. Just make sure that I know that you were on the webinar today. So when you do, just say, hey, this is, and I was on the webinar today, or I was on the webinar the other day, and I had a question that came up after I talked to my family. And then that way we can answer those questions for you. So Ashley Treadway or Ashley Winterroad, anything that I missed today?
No, I think you covered everything.
Okay, great. I see one chat question that came up. Okay, perfect. Bill, you're so kind. Thank you for just saying thanks. If you don't have any questions for me, feel free to jump off the webinar now. And if you do, I'll stick around here for a few minutes until everybody's off. And then again, if you need anything in the future, just let us know. Have a great day.